welcome to Let's Talk Spoop, the Asylum, sorta.
No, we're not talking asylum today. It's definitely spoop.
Yeah, so in lieu of your regularly scheduled um, welcome to the Asylum video, we called an audible and decided to watch a different movie that Jeremiah was able to score us a free screener on. A little bit of background before we talk about this movie. Jeremiah and I live in very different time zones. So Jeremiah will sometimes message me at what will be a totally reasonable time in Arizona, but not necessarily a reasonable time here in Hawaii. For instance,
And just so people hear the noise in the background, we usually record these after everyone goes to bed. At least in my house, we're recording this late in the afternoon, and so all my kids are awake and in here.
Yeah. So he messaged me to what turned out to be about 10 a.m. my time, but a reasonable time, his time, and I was at work. And he's like, "Hey, we got the screener." And then his next statement was, "There's something wrong with the children," in all capital letters. And then silence. So I messaged him, and I was like, "Go on." Nothing. So then
you messaged me when I was on a date.
Yeah. So then I
we're
get
not
on
supposed
Facebook,
to touch phones.
And on Facebook, he has posted a Facebook comment about something to do with the hospital. And I immediately am just like, oh my God, something happened to Jeremiah's children. And I just so I Facebooked him, nothing. I texted him, nothing. I'm just sitting there. I came this close to messaging his mother to find out what was going on. And then it turns out that's just the name of the movie. So I have once again been bamboozled.
And to be clear, the hospital thing was because I was supposed to get a test done that they said they could do at my hospital in my town, and they could do it easily. And when I called them to schedule it, they're like, "Oh yeah, we have a person who comes once a month. Is April good?" Yep, After I had I had driven 2.5 hours to see the original doctor, who had called here to make sure they could do it quickly and easily, and they had said yes.
Yeah, so completely unrelated. The hospital thing, utterly unrelated, routine thing for Jeremiah.
And I was on a date where we do not use our phones, and I had to get special permission to pick it up and go, I need to stop this before this gets out of hand.
Yeah, because it was next step was texting Steph, and then after that was contacting his mother. So, and Steph wouldn't have responded because, again, they were on a date, so she wouldn't have picked up her phone. And yeah, so that's the background to this movie.
And so we got to see it on Redbox On Demand. There's Something Wrong with the Children, which is a Blumhouse movie made with in Paramount with Paramount Home Entertainment and MGM Plus, which is the new name for what used to be called Epix.
Oh.
Epix is now MGM Plus.
I did not know that.
It came out on the 17th, so it came out last week. So we have plenty in the clear to watch it, talk about it. It is currently on video on demand. And it's made by Blumhouse, so it's automatically has higher pedigree than anything that the Asylum makes.
That is a fact. So this video is gonna be broken into two separate segments. Segment one is just kind of our general feelings about the movie and our kind of just overall thoughts. And then segment two is going to be full of spoilers. I'm sure in post, Jeremiah will put a big old warning up or something. Segue. What's that?
Maybe.
Or he'll just take that screenshot of me saying spoilers really loudly and just insert it again. But so we will break up the video. If you don't want any spoilers, stop watching when we get to the spoilers. We'll try to warn you. But yeah, so There's Something Wrong with the Children is about two couples that are out for a getaway in a remote cabin that is several hours from the nearest town.
Yep.
And they're just chilling, having a family get together. And one of the couples, not Thomas, yeah, Thomas and Elise. Is that her name?
Ellie and
Ellie.
Thomas.
Yeah, Ellie and Thomas. They have 2 kids, adorable little children. And then Ben and
Margaret.
Margaret.
I have it in front of me.
They have no children. Cheater. They have no children. And so they're out like hiking, enjoying their time. They find this creepy old fort and for some reason decide to enter it. And after they enter the creepy old fort, the children start acting a little weird.
There might be something wrong with them, actually.
There may be something, in fact, wrong with the children. So they start acting a little bit weird, and then
they disappear overnight.
Ben and Margaret watch them for the night, and they disappear overnight, and then things kind of escalate from there. Yeah, that's pretty
simple. Pretty simple premise for a movie that's 90 minutes long. It's as long as an asylum movie.
Yeah.
It's directed by Roxanne Benjamin, who you probably don't know for film, but she has done episodes of Creepshow, episodes of Riverdale, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Nancy Drew, Pretty Little Liars, Original Sin, which must be a new one. But she does TV stuff, which kind of fits with what they do in Killian, which is what they do with Blumhouse. The stars Alicia Wainwright, who's Margaret, who was in Shadowhunters. Zach Gifford, I don't know him in anything, though I didn't watch Friday Night Lights, the show, but I think he's in there. And then Amanda Crew, who's Ellie, who's in she was in Charlie St. Cloud and Final Destination 3. So there's actors in here that are actual actors.
So there's actors in here.
It's filmed in New Orleans during the pandemic. Not that you can really tell. Like the cast is small anyway on this one.
Yeah.
So I'll give my initial thoughts on this movie. Just to sum it up. 92 minutes is too long. It felt like it should be an episode of The X-Files or Twilight Zone. An hour would have been probably about right. Though they could have really done it in a half-an-hour episode, and it probably would have been creepier. They could have done it. Acting wise, I guess I'll come down on the vein that it's fine. The ending makes no sense.
I disagree.
Well, it makes sense, but also the more you think about this, the more questions you're going to have, which we'll talk about in the next section. But you can only see this watch. Don gave me this watch. It's not a watch for you to play with.
Is that the Dragon Quest watch?
Can you see inside of it?
Yeah, the Dragon Quest watch.
So it's a watch.
Yes, it's a watch.
Right?
And ultimately, I don't think I liked it.
You didn't like it? I enjoyed it.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I thought for sure that this one was going to mess with you because it's the children thing, and I remember how Sinister messed you up pretty bad.
Sinister is way creepier than this movie is.
Sinister is a very creepy movie. This movie's not that creepy.
No.
If I were to give it a creepiness score, I'd probably give it a 2, maybe a 2.5.
I'd give it a 1.
My
It wasn't
thoughts
really
on
creepy
this
at all.
movie. What's that?
I'd give it a 1. It wasn't really that creepy at all.
It had a little bit of creepy. Those children are creepy. But then again, children are creepy in general.
Okay, maybe a 1.5.
Yeah. My thoughts. Clearly it's low budget. They did not there's no real special effects to talk about in this movie.
There's one shot.
They leave a lot of it to your imagination. The story is kinda I feel like they elongated the story to make it fit as a quote-unquote feature film, because at some point, I've talked about this before, but at some point it was decided that for a movie to be taken seriously, it had to be an hour and a half long, which is not correct. But I feel like that's a common problem with a lot of horror films, is that to be taken seriously as a piece of cinema, they have to be at least an hour and a half long. Like Jeremiah said, this movie definitely could have been truncated. Probably max an hour and 10 minutes. Like that would probably have been a
Like it
better.
could have fit in. I saw a review that says it could have fit in Del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. That length.
Yeah,
It's an episode of that.
yeah, for real. And like Jeremiah said, it kind of really felt more like an episode of like a collection of stories, which maybe it is. Maybe they're gonna make some other ones. Who knows? But yeah, so the story kind of winds around more than it has to. The way that they immediately turn on one of the characters is just like, eh. The acting's not bad. The children are super stilted. Um, the way that they like deliver their lines, but I feel like that may have been on purpose because they're possessed, right? Um, so the acting's all right. There's really nothing to talk about for the music. The cinematography wasn't bad.
It was serviceable.
Yeah, it was
The
serviceable.
music sounded very retro. It was very 80s. Like
it did have a bit of an 80s feel to it, but at the same time they had cell phones. So like
and this movie, if you want to put it as a horror movie, it's more along it's definitely psychological horror versus
it's more
anything else.
psychological than in your face for sure. I think that overall on if I were to have scored it like I normally do, probably would have ended up with about a 2.5 overall. It's watchable. There's nothing bad about it, but it's not a high ranking horror film. It's not like a must see by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, that's probably my thoughts. 2.5.
And I will say this because they outright admit this. The ending they did make up on the last day of shooting. It was the last thing they shot, and they just said, "Let's do this," and they had an ending.
It was an ending that even the director didn't see coming.
Yes, it was an ending. It was an ending.
It does have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
So you're a little warmer on this than I am. I'm a bit cooler on it, but I will say it was a lot easier to sit through than about 85% of anything the Asylum's done.
Well, it's Blumhouse, right? Blumhouse is fairly good.
It's known for doing. At least when they make horror movies, it's worth checking out for the most part.
Yeah, unless it's
their most terrifying film ever, The Tooth Fairy, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
No, unless it's what is the name of that one again? Fantasy Island.
I still sat through that movie. I'd rather watch Fantasy Island than most of the Asylum movies we've watched.
Most.
There's at least actors I can watch in that movie.
Come on, you would rather watch Fantasy Island than War of the Worlds Annihilation?
Probably not, no, but I'd watch it more than, what we watched last week.
Yeah, well, yeah, but that movie was also...
And that pirate one, Jolly Roger, and Treasure Island. And, heck, I'd watch it more than Bigfoot.
I don't know. That Bigfoot statue at the end, definitely
the most terrifying thing I've ever seen.
Most terrifying movie by far.
But yeah, it's watchable. It's worth the rent. I probably wouldn't buy it.
Yeah, if it comes out for free in the next few months or so, check it out.
So I will say the main lead, what was her name? Alicia Wainwright, Margaret, the black woman. She is fairly strong. Like she holds the movie together.
Was she black? I thought she was Latina.
I'm pretty sure she's black.
I thought that she was Latina and she was like Thomas's sister or something. They don't really explain.
It sounded like the guys were related.
Yeah, they don't really explain the relationship at all.
But I'm pretty sure she's black, anything black Latina. But Alicia Wainwright's her name. She held the movie together pretty well. Let's skip to spoilers because there are things.
Okay, so
I'm not exactly sure what happened in this movie. So let me put this straight. They go to this ruin.
Yes.
They hear voices inside ruin, at least the kids do, or see the shiny thing. There's nothing shiny on the bottom.
Brilliant.
And and they pull the kids away from the edge of this cliff because they're standing there and they're going to go over.
Yep.
And then the kids act a little weird and they're talking about, in weird voices, wanting to go back there. And then that night they do. And Ben goes to find them and sees them going over the edge. I'm assuming he saw the actual kids go over the edge, and then bug children were left, who came back and replaced them in the cabin.
Yes. So, one of two things happen. Number one is when Ben and Margaret were watching the kids that night, they snuck out to go see the brilliant place again because it hypnotized them, and then they went over the edge and were possessed by bugs. They went back to their actual parents' house.
Possessed or replaced? I think they're replaced.
Replaced. Sorry, I said possessed. I meant replaced. They were replaced by bugs in their skin, maybe. They went to the parents' place. The other possibility, which is the one that I think is actually what happened, is that when Ben went to the cave to find them, he had a vision of what actually happened when they initially went to the fort the first time. Because, like, the kids, they're all, like, standing around talking, and the kids had wandered off and gone to that spot, and then they couldn't find them, right? But that's when they started, like, referring to it as the brilliant place, and that they wanted to go back, was after that event, right? So I think that because Ben appears to have some sort of psychological issues.
Yeah, he's taking
food stabilizer
medication. Yeah.
To include possibly hallucinations. So I think he went back and hallucinated what actually happened, which is the children fell in, but they fell in when they went there initially, because otherwise the timeline doesn't really add. Because the kids were already over at Thomas and Ellie's house, essentially right after they discovered they were missing.
Yeah. And so, okay. Two other questions I have about people. So he disappeared, Ben, and he got taken over. I'm assuming he went over because he went over. You see him going over the edge. So there's no assumption there. You just see it.
Yes.
But their dad, they lure him out into the woods, and then later you just see him like run back and tackle Ben, and just go to town on him. But he wasn't possessed. He went out in the woods with them.
He went out into the woods with them. He didn't go into the fort with them. So, after...
I wonder if they filmed anything with him, what he was doing in the woods, because it just seemed like, ta-da, he's back, and it made no sense. It was literally how they murdered everyone else they saw.
Yeah, so they murdered their mom, and at the same time, Spencer murdered the mom. And at the same time, Spencer was
when he rose from the dead because he thought he was dead when he got hit in the throat with a shovel.
I thought he got hit in the stomach.
He got hit with a shovel because he was playing with it.
Well, he was
threatening him with it.
And Ben tried.
And he hit with the handle. The handle killed him. Like, no, really, that killed a child?
Yeah. First of all, there's that. Second of all, it still bugs me how quickly they turned on him. Like, it was so fast. Like, Margaret went from defending him to my husband murdered a child for no reason. They didn't like ask him what happened. They didn't let him explain nothing. They just turned on him instantly, including Margaret. Like I get Thomas and Ellie turning on him instantly. I don't get his wife turning on him instantly. But
and just making sure I understood, Thomas and Ellie, they're awkward at the beginning because they were part of a
swingers
thing and was really awkward with it, and one of them participated but not the other. I'm not 100% sure-ish. That's a weird thing to put into the story, right? Like, that's just like a weird thing to write in.
Yeah.
Then she tries to swing back at Ben and gets revenge because
he lost his job.
And Margaret doesn't actually want to be around him.
Which is clearly not true, because Margaret clearly was enjoying their time together.
And they were talking about the whole time how they want to talk about having kids. I'm like, yeah, you're never having kids now.
True. But yeah, so one of the good things about this movie is I was able to elicit a promise from Adele that if I ever start saying crazy shit like that, she has to believe me. So that's good. But yeah, so what happened is Ben took Margaret to go see the bodies in the fort, assuming they were still there, because he thought that whatever the children were some sort of clone or something along those lines. But what I think
Yeah.
actually happened is the children's bodies were their dead bodies were possessed by whatever the bug creatures were, and then they were just kind of used
Meat
because
suits.
yeah, meat suits
Edgar
because like
suits.
they can all move around and stuff, but like that's why Spencer's heart stopped beating and they couldn't find a pulse, right? Because he's
Did they
absolutely
actually check for a pulse, or did he just stop moving and they just started crying and freaking out on him?
no. Ben says says out loud that he can't find a pulse.
Okay, because mom just kind of freaked out. But there is a scene in this movie though where the sister is walking next to a curtain in silhouette and is a freaking bug, and then
Yeah.
morphs into her hoodie.
Yes, which is weird.
Yes, that's a special effects shot that exists for a reason.
For reasons to give us an explanation of some sort. It's also weird because it appeared to be a praying mantis. But yeah, so that was odd.
And they've been talking
Anyway,
with clicking the whole time.
yeah. Anyway, in answer to your initial question about Thomas, so when Spencer is killing mom, the daughter is supposed to be killing Thomas in the woods. You see or you hear like the squelching sounds of him being attacked in the woods shortly after he leaves when Margaret's like running around, right? And then Margaret calls his cell phone in order to lure the kids away from her at one point. Because his phone goes off in the distance, they run off to investigate,
Oh, I
right?
thought she called Ben's phone.
Nope, she called Thomas.
Okay, she called Ben a lot, and it's not that
She
time.
did
It's
call Ben.
Thomas. Okay.
So then, whilst those events are going on, Ben is having his existential crisis because he's trying to decide if he's crazy or not, which he wasn't. And whilst he's having that existential crisis, he sees the same bright light that the children did, and he decides, or he gets hypnotized the same way they did, jumps over the edge, and gets possessed by another bug creature thing. So then, Thomas, we never saw his body. We did see Ellie's body. And when the children drag um, Margaret and Ellie to the cave to throw them in to be used as meat suits, they don't also drag Thomas. He's not there.
So the question to the cave. So Margaret passes out.
Yes.
By the car.
Yes.
And then she wakes up and they're in the cave and she sees the kids throwing Ellie over the edge. And then she loses consciousness and wakes up and she's by the car again. Where she was before.
No.
Because then she gets straight into the pickup truck and drives off. She wakes up exactly where she was when she passed out.
No, you missed a scene, dude. So she wakes up in the cave with Ellie. The children drag Ellie in to toss her over the side because she is dead. While they're tossing her over the side, Margaret gets up and shoves them into the hole and then runs back to the house and jumps in the truck.
No, she shoves them in the hole, then wakes up.
No, she ran back to the house. She ran out of the cave. They just didn't show her running through the woods.
I will pull this scene up
and
see. But I think you're reading though about how they fell in at the beginning.
Yeah.
And the rest were already replaced. I think that makes it way clearer and helps.
Yes. That's how
because that would make much more sense.
Yeah.
Because then the end just makes okay. So I'm pulling this up. She passes out. They're above her head. She wakes and okay. Then she wakes up. She's in the cave. In the cave. They're throwing body over. 10 seconds forward. They're peering over the edge where it's glowing green. She Oh wait, no. What was the first body? They threw another body over just beforehand.
They threw Ellie over.
No, okay. So I'm looking at this. She wakes up. She's next to Ellie, and they're throwing a body over right then and there. So I don't know what body this is.
Oh, the sheriff.
Oh, okay, that body.
Yeah.
Then they're throwing
The sheriff.
Ellie, and they're throwing Ellie. I'm skipping 10 seconds at a time. And then she goes and pushes. Okay, they push the body into the glowing green. Then she pushes him off the edge. So they never explained the why. They made a point in the beginning how there's like all these holes in the walls and what made these holes in the walls here.
No explanation.
Like giant holes to the walls. Okay, so she pushes. Okay, it was just a weird cut. Okay,
yeah,
that's what it was.
Yep. Yeah, there are a lot of loose ends that they didn't really explain. I think the holes must have been the actual bug creatures doing it.
Busting out?
Maybe. They obviously need humanoid hosts for some reason. And they obviously, after they got Ben, it looks like
and there were dead bodies in there already of other animals.
Yeah, which were all gone when Ben went back. If I remember. But yeah, so they clearly wanted a female an adult female, because they didn't bring Thomas, and they already had Ben, and Ben has that whole like spiel where he's talking to Margaret about like, I've changed my mind, or I'm making the decision now. We should start a family, and she's like, you're not Ben, right? So there's something going on there. It doesn't really. But yeah, so we are led to believe that Thomas is dead, but we don't ever actually see his body. So he probably just passed out from his wounds, and the daughter, being a bug creature and not a human being, just assumed he was dead. And then they went on along their merry way, and then he wakes up, starts to come to, sees Ben attacking Margaret, and then intervenes. And then we would assume that Thomas dies subsequent to that, because Ben and the children show up in the road.
Yeah, so she's driving off to escape in the finale.
Yes.
And she thinks she's gotten away. Then they all stand up in the middle of the road, and the movie ends with her basically just screaming as she rushes a truck straight towards them to run them over.
Yes.
And so we don't think when she went back with Ben to that cave that they didn't do anything with her mind.
Mm-hmm.
That we know of anyway.
Yeah.
And then the movie just kind of ends.
Yes. Very abruptly, to leave you like kind of wondering, like, did she run them over? Did she successfully kill them? Did they Spider-Man jump over the vehicle, land on top of it, like what happened? Because obviously throwing them into the cave from whence they came isn't going to do anything. So like, you already knew the kids were going to come back. That was a given. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about this one that aren't really defined. Though I think the best reading would be that the kids died at the beginning. I think that helps the most, because it otherwise it's kind of weird, because they were already acting weird before then, and we know. I mean, it's mostly psychological. So like, he could have been having a mental breakdown, and then they mentioned the fact that she got really high, like because she said she's a one-hit wonder, and like, no, you took like 6 or 7 hits.
Yeah. So she was high, and he was on mood stabilizers, and could have been hallucinating things, possibly brought on by the bug creatures, because of the thing with the pills and all that. Unclear.
Oh yeah, the pills inside the drink and so on. Yeah, but the real question I have is, okay, so these are bugs. They must not like other bugs, because he was smashing. They made a point of him to smash tons of bugs that were just everywhere.
Dead bugs.
There were beetles everywhere.
They were out in the wilderness. But you never see any mosquitoes attack. Yeah. So yeah, that would be my explanation, my interpretation of what was happening there. I feel like they should have shortened the movie, definitely, and kind of just been a little bit clearer in their direction. But overall, I did enjoy the film. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna say the movie's bad.
Yeah.
Not in the slightest, but
it could have been better. We've definitely seen better offerings from Blumhouse.
yeah, it's a lesser Blumhouse one. It's like one of the lesser ones that they have on like Amazon Prime. Yeah. You can definitely tell why it wasn't going to theaters. I would have liked it to have been tighter, or at least more thought out. You could definitely tell they were going by the seat of the pants for some of it. And I'm not the biggest fan when horror doesn't have an ending, or at least a couple of endings in mind when they make it. And this one, clear, like you can tell they had no ending in mind. They had no idea what they were doing.
Really certain the Thomas interference was like the point where they're just like, oh shit, we need to figure out how to end this.
Yeah, because then he just like disappears. Did they murder him?
Yeah, who knows?
Probably.
Most likely, because those bug humanoids apparently can take pretty good damage.
And was that like an asteroid that hit that was causing all the green hypnotizing thing on the bottom? I know it was a nest, but what?
Yeah, there wasn't like some sort of Aztec explanation or something like that, which is what.
And that fort was definitely not an Aztec anything.
Yeah, I was expecting some sort of like.
It looked like a warehouse.
Fair. I would probably chalk the issues down to it being filmed during COVID. That like that kind of limited them in their options. But
the cop made me laugh though, because she's like, I hear like no cop would come to talk about a body and just be so casual about it.
Not by themselves. If you call the cops and you tell them that a person murdered a child in your home, there are multiple cops coming. It is not going to be one sheriff.
Sorry, Bruce is trying to terrorize his siblings.
I'm not.
But yeah, and then Margaret's acting crazy.
Yes.
It has lots of blood, tons of blood, and then like I'm not quite sure they stabbed the cop with something. I couldn't see what it was.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what it was.
And then they like drag her away with like their. Honestly, it felt like a tongue or something. I'm not 100% sure what it was.
Yeah, they weren't really clear. This movie could have used that extra 20 minutes they put into the movie to kind of just explain a little bit more about what's actually going on. But instead we got no exposition.
But on that note, I think that's about all we can really discuss about this movie, because I'm glad we have it. I'm glad we got to watch something that wasn't The Asylum. It was a real movie with actual actors. It could have been much better, though.
But yeah, so next week we'll be back with Welcome to the Asylum.
Snakes on a Train.
Snakes on a Train. It's going to be great.
Feeling.
And with that, okay, thanks, bye.